it's something that, we're still working with the tenant. They still have a very strong interest in it. We think it's an opportunity, but we have to go through some economics.
Paul, do you have another question?
Yeah, I had a question, actually, because we've had our presentation, and we could ask questions, but if you had, just a story that you wanted to present, because it was indicated that you wanted to present and kind of tell us your side of things, I'd appreciate hearing that.
Context, that was part of it that I just mentioned, which is, if you look at the site, it's been available as part of the distance.
Kurt, if you can go to the microphone just so we can pick it up on the minutes, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
I think it's important for context from the standpoint of this was originally part of the TIF that was approved, and I don't know exactly when that First Street District or First Street TIF was approved, but it's obviously part of that. It came, there's two other parcels. One has been developed, which is the apartment building next to the Blue Goose. That was 3 parcels that sometime in, and I'm going to get the timing wrong, so I don't want to, misstate it, but sometime in 2018, early 2018, the city had asked if we or someone else had any interest in those 3 lots. So we were working through some design elements with those. When we got to a certain point within the design and we had some ideas that we were fleshing out, nothing was decided at any point. You start getting into the conversation about the economics of all of that. What we determined at the time, based on the requirements, particularly the underground parking requirement or just the parking requirement of the one that is part of the Blue Goose, that I don't know what lot it's referred to as, but that one required, required parking, and the RFP or the requirement or what the city wanted was retail on the first floor and some level of residential on the second, third, fourth, whatever floor that would be. In order to get that demand met from a parking standpoint, you had to go underground. There was no economics that would make that work from a gap standpoint. The city didn't have anything to offer in terms of financial assistance. All they could do was offer, the opportunity to have the land. And so we were looking at all 3 of those as a whole piece. And it just didn't make sense from an economic standpoint to, one would be a burden on the other. So at that point, and I don't know who all was in, those discussions, again, I don't want to misstate something. But we decided that it wasn't something that was economically feasible for us to do for all 3 of those because it was a package, if you will, is the way to look at that. Some time went by. Don't know exactly what the genesis of it was, to be quite honest. But this lot opportunity came up as an individual lot. And because it has the parking next to the deck, because of the type of building that it would be, no residential, we could have, less impact from a parking, didn't have to go underground for parking. So we ended up with the design that we have, and we think it's a good design for that particular site. And again, not any financial assistance available with the city. So, the opportunity to have the site available from a land standpoint, and that's when we started working with the RDA, got all that put together. I told you the rest, I'm not going to repeat all of that. And so, we have spent, 4 years, if you will, 2 of them during the pandemic. I think that's important to recognize. And that particular site, it's a good site. There's nothing wrong necessarily, but it's not the best site in the city. And I think that's had some impact on the ability to market it. It sat for 12 or 13 years with no interest in it. And when the city was looking for all 3 as a package, they got similar responses. So that's where we are from an economic standpoint, if you will. Like I said, we have a tenant that we're working with very closely. There's some significant issues that we have to work through that was retraded when we got to the lease stage.
Hang on a second.
Sure.
One of the things, and I've heard this a couple of times, and shame on me for not asking before.
You bet.
What does it mean that it was retraded? That's not a term that...
A significant financial aspect of the deal points was changed.
Okay, so
they retraded.
A counterpoint, like a negotiation point.
We agree. Yeah.
Okay.
We agree. Right. We agreed to it in an LOI. It's a significant financial point. we get everything ironed out. Those are sort of the business points. There's a few legal points in an LOI. It's very detailed. You send it to the lawyers and you start drafting the lease, and the lease comes back to us, and that has been retraded. There's one or two significant items in there, and so that's where we are right now.
Okay.
And so we trying to work through that. You know, it presents a significant financial risk to us that, you know, it's not something that we can do without some level of participation from them as well. So would we meet them in the middle? You bet we would. That's how deals are done. And those things, a lot of times, you know, they eat up time and they eat up fees. I mean, we spend a lot of money. That's why, you know, I asked the question about what the numbers are. We spent a lot of money on legal fees to get to where we are right now, not only in the RDA, but through the lease negotiations and all of that. So I think those are relevant points. The pandemic is, you know, something that is in consideration. I'm going to step back for just a second from the beginning because I didn't say it because I answered your question and I kind of got into my conversation.
Sorry. I threw you off, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It was a great question, and it's a relevant question. You know, we want, whatever is decided, you know, our best interest is aligned with the city. And if you think you have a better opportunity or you want to pursue a better opportunity, we're going to fully support that. There's no question about that. But, you know, we're here to just make sure we get a little context in there that, you know, it's a difficult site. It's been a difficult site from the very beginning. There was 12 or 13 years of no activity on that site. There's been no activity on that site, others coming in. And so we're working through that, and it's not a site that I'll build on spec. It's a pretty expensive build. I don't want to sit on a $4 or $5 million building with no tenant in it. And so, you know, we have to work through these issues, and we've spent the last 7 months probably negotiating with this particular tenant. And sure, we're exposing it to the market through, you know, the traditional channels. You know, they have very robust commercial sites out there. We have a broker that's involved, and we have signage. Those are pretty typical marketing efforts, and we've exposed it, and nobody has presented themselves with regard to that. So I think that's, you know, that's important to understand that, you know, we have a significant financial incentive to keep this thing going. And once, again, if what the council decides tonight is what they want to do, I'll support you 100% on that. But what you do need to understand is that once that happens, once it's terminated, I can no longer negotiate with the tenant that I have with the terms that we have, because now I don't have control of the property, nor do I have the confidence that I've come back to the same terms of where I am now. You understand that? I mean, if it might be something different, and so I might have to go back and do something different with the tenant. So effectively, it makes it very difficult for me to continue the conversation. And if that, that's why I want to make sure that I point that out, is that, you know, that's where we are. If you guys have a plan or somebody that you're working with, or if you're going to go to an RFP, we'll fully support it. But sure, we have an opinion that we'd like to keep moving forward with this, if we can, because we have a significant financial interest, and we think it's a great project. And we think that the tenant that we're working with is a significant tenant that would be very additive to the community. And so those are sort of the reasons. And I'll say this, and I'm real delicate about this. I don't want to be, the best way to describe it is, you know, I've had difficult projects before. And the ones that, you know, I have a project that I've had for a long time, and we call it a shadow anchor, and it's a grocery store. Sometimes we own the grocery store parcel, sometimes we don't. And we have a development in another community that has a shadow anchor, and it's called that because we don't own the parcel, but it's part of our development. And that grocery store is a very significant grocery store, and it adds a lot to the value of our center in terms of traffic, because it's a very high traffic center, or a very high traffic grocer, and brings it in. This is where the delicate part is, right? Because I don't want to offend anybody. But with the Blue Goose closing, it has changed the dynamic of that site. And so when that gets repositioned, whatever that reposition is, it will have an impact on how that gets looked at from the real estate community and the tenant community. So I just think that's an important part of the conversation as well. It is where we are. You know, I'm not, you know, trying to, you know, sell you on anything. I'm trying to give you the facts as I know them, which is we've spent a significant amount of money. We continue to work very hard at finding a tenant for it. We work hard at the tenant we're working with, but I'm not willing to accept the financial terms that they retraded me with. And so we just have to see if we can get through that. And there's no guarantee that that's going to happen. So, you know, we may not be able to get it back to where we can both be comfortable with the economics. Am I staunch in my position of where I'm at? No. And is he where he is? Probably not. But we can find a common ground is what we're hoping. So I think that's important for the context of understanding where we are. I think most importantly that when this is terminated, we have to start from ground zero again to make sure we understand what the deal looks like if we were to go back and expose it to the market again. So I think that's important to note.
Yep. Go ahead, Rita.
Yeah, what does back to ground zero mean?
Well,
I mean, you have all
I
your
can't-
work done. I'm just wondering, you know, what does that mean? You have to start from scratch, or?
I would, no.
No.
I would be able to preserve the costs that I have involved.
Okay.
But I can't go to the market and say, hey, I have a deal that I'd like you to look at because here's the building and here's the economics of it, because I don't know what those economics are going to look like coming back. I would love to say in a new RDA there would be some availability of TIF financing to help offset some of the costs, and I could probably fund some of the things that they're asking for.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't guarantee that. I don't know if there's going to be a cost associated with the land, because currently the land is part of the deal, the reason that's part of the deal is because when the original RFP went out, and it wasn't just exposed to us, it was exposed to others. What was part of the conversation was there are no funds available in the existing TIF, so we cannot help with anything. Now, the infrastructure is done, sanitary and waters to the site, those are all very helpful, so that's all, you know, a very positive part of the deal. But the only thing that could be offered was the city's participation in the land. It's very different, which is why we decided that we couldn't go forward with our design, if you will, for the other lot, because that was completely different. It had a retail component, it had
I remember.
a residential component, but it required parking, and
Underneath.
the only place to add that parking was down.
Yep, I remember.
It's just not a practical site to do it from a gap standpoint. So we couldn't undertake that without losing money, quite frankly. And so the city didn't have the funds to do that. So that's why that site still sits, to be quite honest with you. And that fact hasn't changed and is not going to change.
No, right, I
And
agree.
the advantage that this site has is that it's right next door. It's not really suitable for a residential development, so you're not going to have that component that you have to deal with from a parking standpoint.
I'm just asking because I'm wondering if you wouldn't benefit from a whole new, you know, when you say you don't know, don't have a guarantee of the economics, meaning what the city will give it to you for, or?
Well, no, right now the city their financial contribution is the land.
Right.
That's helpful.
Okay. And why would that change if you
I don't know
we started over again?
I don't know if it would. I'm just saying that I can't go to the market and represent that. I can't, you know, the economics may change. Maybe the city decides that they want to charge for the land. Maybe they want to do something else. I don't know. I'm just trying to, you know, make sure that we know the context. I'm not trying to sell you on it. If you want to terminate the TIF, or the RDA, sorry. If you want to terminate the RDA, I'm in full support of what you want to do to make the city move forward. But I just think it's important to understand the context of how that kind of affects everything, right? So I don't know. It's an uncertainty is the way to say that. I can't go to the market and say, here's what my deal looks like. I hope that explains it.
Yeah. I just don't see the roadblock you do, that's all.
That's what I mean by going back. Okay, maybe it's ground zero is the wrong term.
Okay.
It's definitely a different discussion when I go to the market.
The first conversation with one was always timing, economic.
Sure.
Right.
Once we get lined up in LOI, we can't negotiate good faith if we don't understand the scales are at that.
Right,
And once we're outside the RDA, then
right. And timing is part of that as much as the financial part of that, because it's, like I said, big parts of these deals are timing. I'd like to get open by then. When can you start? I don't know. I don't have that answer. Now I know. I have the opportunity to start because I've gone through, and that's why we don't go to the market until we design it. Yeah, we push it out there a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason the sign exists that's on the site right now is because we fully developed the design. And that's what people are buying into. Would it be better if the building were built? It would probably be somewhat easier to market it because people like to touch and see it, feel the space, walk through it. How am I going to do this? How am I going to get to the second floor? How am I going to do this? What's the access look like? Those are answered in the physical realm. But I'm not going to build a $4 million building on spec. So.
Todd, you got a question?
For Derek. So if we terminate it, what's the plan?
Well, we would terminate it, and then we would be, open to working with other developers. I would probably market it, put it on CoStar. We could talk about signage on it, on the site, things like that, and talking to other developers.
Nothing, and what do we have in terms of communication? We've had a couple of inquiries, but nothing.
Nothing too serious.
Okay. And you wouldn't anticipate an RFP process with this?
No, I wouldn't. I would probably kind of put it out to the world, see what we get, and maybe try to attract some. But then there would be that opportunity because we would be publishing whatever deal that was, and we would be accepting alternate bids.
Is there a listing? Let me ask this question. Is there a notice period for the termination? So is it immediate? Is it 60 days? Is it?
We would have to issue a 30-day notice, I believe.
And is there any seasonality to the listing of this property? Is it good to get it on the listing in spring? Does it matter for this?
I mean, to me, it doesn't matter. I mean, certainly we can expect that unless Frontier comes with a project immediately, and this is extended, that there won't be construction on it this year. Any new developer that would come in, they would spend this entire year going through the city process and doing their own planning.
Brian, go ahead.
I guess I have more of a comment. I appreciate the work that they put into this, but it's been 4 years. It's been a long time. I would like to explore giving other interested parties an opportunity to present some concepts or ideas. I think it would serve the best interest of the community to open it up to the market, get a sign out there. We have a new economic development director that can market that property. I think there's value in that. I just think it's time to move on because I just think it serves the best interest of the community. It's been 4 years, and that's a long time. So that's where I'm at. I'm ready to move on with this. Perhaps if we do sell it, maybe there's a market to sell it. We can make money off the property, but we won't know until we open it up to the market. I think we're kind of, maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't. And I think for me, I feel a sense of obligation to just terminate the agreement. Let's see what Derek can do with the property and move forward with it.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Ron.
Yeah, I kind of echo what Brian says. I approved the project in 2019. I thought it was a good fit back then, and I expected something to be built. I understand the pandemic, but I have seen other buildings go up in St. Charles during the pandemic, just like the one by the old Blue Goose. That went up during the pandemic. So it can be done. I just think it's time to move on. You can resubmit. In fact, I'm not even sure if I would even go for this project now. I don't know if I'd approve it. I kind of like the open space there. I think we could do something with it. But that's just my opinion. So, I mean, I'm willing to terminate it and put it out for RFP or however you want to present it to the developers out there. But, I think it's time to move on. 4 years is a long time, and we haven't seen any new schedules or anything. The last schedule we had is 2019. We haven't, and I understand you're working with developers, but you can't guarantee it'll be done. I don't want to just keep sitting on this property and waiting. So I think we need to move on and start over again.
Go ahead, Ed.
what kind of difficulties were you coming across? I mean, were you getting feedback from some of the interested parties on outside of the Blue Goose? I guess the way I look at that property, it is on the back side of the garage. It is kind of butted up against, right against the street on both sides. Were you getting any other negative feedback on why it's going to be hard back there?
Not necessarily. I mean, it's not, I'm not gonna say that I'm gonna say it's a good site.
Yeah.
It's not the best site.
Right, no, you said that, yeah.
There's more premium spots in town.
Mhm.
There's good opportunities of existing buildings to do things that would be less expensive. So you just have to work through the economics. I mean, I think you could ask the same question for the lot that is, again, apologize for not knowing the lot number, but the one that is on, right there, right, it's it's, you know, it's across
Like
from
an 8.
Timbers, right? It's
Yeah.
part of the Blue Goose
Mhm,
parking lot,
mhm.
right?
Mhm.
That site has been there since the beginning of the TIF. Don't know what the activity has been on that, similar, you know, in terms of location and all that. It has some, you know, financial difficulties as well, which is the parking. So that's why I'm just trying to make sure that the context is out there. Relationship to the building that you mentioned that was built, you know, that was planned for, which is the way we looked at it from the beginning, retail on the first floor, with some residential on the second, third, or whatever height that they would go to, right, on that particular building. And part of it's because it's in the overlay district. It's not in the historic district. It's right outside of it. But it's part of the overlay district. So not sure, don't matter. I think it's a great project. I'm glad that it's residential. I'm glad that it's there. But the sacrifice there was made. There's no retail because that's the parking. And that's how they had to do the parking because it was not economically feasible. But the parking on the underground. So that's a good example of what has to happen. So those are just examples. They don't mean anything in terms of, you know, how we end up where we are. But like I said, I'm going to support what the city does. I hope that, you know, what I've done activity-wise is, you know, shown that. And, you know, if you're going to take it to the market, I'd be very interested to see where it goes.
And then I had one more question. In regards to the interested party that you're in discussions with now,
Yeah.
I mean, and if you said it, forgive me, but are you talking a few months this is going to go on for, meaning the negotiations, or?
Well, we've been at a standstill for the last 4 or 5 months.
Okay.
Let's put it that way.
So it's hard to predict
Doesn't
how
mean
much.
that it's dead. I've had deals that have gone longer than that.
Yeah.
You know, I hope Todd can attest to, you know, how long sometimes a deal and how complicated it gets.
I guess I'm just trying to find out how much more time you need, so.
Yeah, I'm not saying that I need any specific time because I'm not going to, you know, put myself in a position where I can't perform on that because it's a great question from the standpoint that I've been doing this for 30 years, and I never know exactly what the timing's going to look like.
Mm-hmm.
And they sometimes go away, and then they come back. I mean, I've done this for many, many times,
Sure.
right? And so it's not unusual or foreign to me to be where I'm at. It's just the economics don't work the way it's currently traded. And so if that changed, and if I can convince them to change, and it's a very significant tenant, and it would be a very good fit.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm sure they're looking at it from the standpoint that, you know, okay, there's some risk associated with that particular site.
Sure.
And so they're trying to put some of that financial burden on us. So that's what it really comes down to.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Bill.
Just kind of tagging on to that, less about the time frame, but more about the confidence you have to close the deal. Forget about how long it'll take, but how far off are you guys from the concessions that you need to make to maybe come to a deal? Is it 50%?
$1 million.
Okay.
25% of the deal.
Hmm. Your confidence is right, 50%?
It's, you know, I can't put a percentage on it. You know, like I said, I've done this so many times where things have unraveled and they ravel back up just real fast. And I can't give you a time frame. I'm not going to do that because I'll be in the same spot 6 months from now or a year from now. I'm just saying that I think I'm just trying to be as transparent as I can, give as much context as I can, so that you understand where we are. and that when we get, if that's, where you land, again, we support whatever the city's gonna do, but it does change how we look at it. I can no longer go say I have control of the timing or the cost or that. So I have to look at it through a different lens, that's all.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. You're in discussion already with someone who's interested. We'd have to start that all over again, right? And so.
I'm further in discussions. I probably spent $20,000 on legal fees just for this deal.
You literally went and started laying their tenant improvements into our architecture.
Architectures, right. Yes. We had all of our architects in the same room, and they said, this is what we want to do, and we got all through that. Something triggered that, and that's, you know, when the LOIs are all finalized and we're going to lease, and something in there triggered their change.
I was gearing up to build this thing in the spring,
Yes.
a few months ago.
Okay,
Right,
okay.
right. So,
Go ahead, Ron.
Thank you. Just a question.
sure.
This tenant, which I don't need to know,
Mhm.
is that tenant gonna do the whole building?
The,
Or is it gonna do just the upper floor, or
The-
gonna be the lower?
the first floor and the roof experience,
Okay.
right.
So
And
let's just
the middle
say you
floor.
made a deal with this developer. Would you still need to do the second floor before you built it?
No, that's actually the easiest component, but the less valuable economically. And
So
so
you-
it's easy from the standpoint that we, you know, this is comfortable for me to say, because I've been doing it for 30 years. You know, we work with tenants all the time, and so we know where we are with them, and we've had a good conversation. Do I have a deal with an office tenant? No, I'm not gonna represent that, but I have somebody that is willing to do it if I go forward with the project because they like the location, they like the use. But that's a component that doesn't make the whole building economically viable by itself. I can't do the restaurant, I can't do the office only, but that tenant would move forward with this.
So you would
As part of our-
you would build it with just the one tenant,
I
correct?
would, if it were reversed and I didn't have an office building
Right.
or an office user, I would absolutely build a restaurant in the top floor, because I would,
But in this particular project, if you and the tenant, potential tenant agreed,
mhm,
would you build a project with that other floor being open?
yes,
Okay, thank you.
absolutely.
That's what I was
Yeah.
getting at. Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
even if I didn't finalize a deal with the office user, I would, that to me would be the, you know, because understanding the economics of, you know, the real estate perspective, the majority of the cost is, you know, first of all, getting the building built, right? But then the majority of, there's a lot of tenant improvements depending on the type of tenant. And restaurant users typically present one of the higher tenant improvement requirements. In particular, this particular tenant has a very high one, and so there's a lot of rent associated with it. So we make an economic decision that's favorable based on where we are with that. The office, it's a blank slate. You put some partition walls up, and it's not a real expensive part of the project. It's the rest of the building and the tenant that is taking the bottom and the top floors represent the economic opportunity for us to be above our normal gap, and then the office would, or whatever use that came. But part of our initial conversation was they were wanting to take the whole building, this user, and use the second floor for event space, you know, for banquets and that type of thing, right? But then as they get into the discussion and the architecture, that changes. No, we're no longer interested in that component, but we like the top and the bottom floor. So that's what we're dealing with, you know.
No, I understand. That's
they're
why I want to know if you
complicated.
would still build
It's
it
complicated, and there's a lot
without
of
being
moving parts.
completely pre-leased. That's my
Right,
question. Okay,
right.
thank you.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions up here?
All right, get Rita first.
Yeah.
I had one more.
Go ahead, Rita.
Yeah, I have to say, this has been very helpful. When was the last time, Russ, we got an update on this? Was that 19?
March of last year.
March of last year?
Correct.
Okay. And things have happened since March of last year, or no?
We had inter conversations with the tenant in March of last year.
Since March of last year?
No, we had at that time.
Oh, right, that's what I'm saying, yeah, that there's been,
That conversation,
right.
gotten through the LOIs on the architecture, lease draft, and
Most of the conversations that we had with prospective tenants prior to that March update where we
Right.
are, you know, like St. Charles, like COVID, we're not spending money right now, but see where we are every month, see where we are every month.
Right, so without this update we've gotten today, as far as we were concerned, there's been nothing going on. Right, so maybe this even coming up in conversation has been helpful in that regard to know, I know maybe, you know, off the record, you kind of, you know, updated me on some things, but, so that's been kind of helpful to have that, and maybe it was worth bringing this up just to have, you know, that update in that conversation.
Go ahead.
And then Derek, this is more for you. I think you said that there's been minimal interest that you've been hearing on your behalf.
Yeah, there's been people who have reached out asking about the status of the project, not really saying, hey, I'm interested in purchasing it or doing a development, but I may be interested, where are we at? Where's the city at with the property?
And with that said, would there be anything wrong with, like, revisiting this in 90 days? And I don't know if 90 days is the right answer, but what would be, in your opinion, the positive or negative of doing that?
I mean, waiting 90 days isn't, I mean, going to hurt anything on our end, I guess. It kind of depends on what council wants. Is 4 years enough? Is 90 days going to?
I'm not sure 90 days will be enough. Yeah, I know.
You know, it could give Frontier Development one last run at this potential tenant that they've had.
That's kind of where I'm going with it.
Yeah, I'm wondering if a new deadline might prompt, you know, the conversation on your tenant. 90 days.
Or whatever.
Or whatever, yeah, I'm just saying, no, right,
Yeah.
that was just arbitrary, I know, yeah.
Whatever we were given to finish the conversation.
Okay,
I would leave with that.
okay.
All right, so, Kurt?
No, right, but sometimes a little push helps.
And in the meantime, if somebody did come and say, we want to do this, and you had to move us out of the way for a real opportunity, then we would obviously say no.
Yeah.
Anybody wants to talk to somebody, again, that, from our perspective, is economic incentive to the city, about our personal financial interest. If you have somebody came on and said, I have this great concept, it's ready to go, let's go in, by all means.
And that conversation wouldn't be prohibited, would it, Derek, right now? I mean, if somebody came in, I mean, you already said you had kind of off-the-cuff conversation.
Similar to what Ms. Hirsch said, if someone else has an RDA on this, they're not going to take this property seriously. They may
right.
but they're not going to
They're not going to invest $100,000. No, I understand that.
Or the time into it.
Yeah, okay.
Go ahead, Brian.
I think that's the concern, is that we keep pushing this out with the hope of getting a different result, and I just don't believe we will. I think we're going to be in the same situation 90 days from now. Anyone that's inquiring now is not, you made the point exactly. Nobody's going to come forward as long as that sign is planted in the lawn and there's a agreement in place. It's just going to keep going on. It's been 4 years. Why not open it up to the market? I feel a sense of obligation. Open it up to the market. We have Derek that's on staff now. He can market it, and let's see what happens. I just feel a sense of obligation to maximize what can go there, because it's been 4 years. It's not been 4 months. It's 90 days. I just suspect nothing's going to happen in 90 days. That's just my opinion.
Yep.
So.
Go ahead, Rita.
Mr. Chairman, I would agree, prior to this meeting tonight, you know, that to hear that there has been activity, that there has been, you know, it hasn't been sitting.
I've heard that same activity 7 months ago, and it's the same thing. So it hasn't changed. So it was 7 months ago I heard something was going to happen with a letter of intent. 7 months later, we're still here talking about it. So I just don't think, for me, I don't think it serves the best interest of the community. It's a city-owned lot. If it was private, it's your business what you do. But for me, put it out there. If they want to purchase it, let's say we decide to sell it and they want to purchase it, they're certainly more than welcome to purchase it. You know, I just think we need to maximize what we're going to get out of it. That's my opinion.
So currently, suggested action is, to approve a mutual release and the waiver of termination agreement. Does someone want to make a motion in a second to vote on that?
Move for approval.
Moved by Brian, seconded by,
I'll second it.
seconded by Sokadis. Can I please have a roll call vote on to terminate?
And just to be clear, Mr. Chairman, this is for a 30-day notice of termination.
That's correct. Roll call, please.
Calamaris,
No.
Payleitner,
No.
Bancroft,
No.
Lencioni,
Abstention.
Petrilla,
Yes.
Wirball,
Yes.
Bessner,
No.
Sokaitis.
I forgot what the motion was.
30-day
Terminate,
termination.
30-day termination.
Oh, yes, thank you.
4 noes, 3 yeses, so, currently this will not be terminated.
So now I'd make a motion, or Ed, if you want to make it.
You can make it clear.
Yeah, I'd make a motion to provide a notice of termination with a 90-day horizon to give the developer time to talk and maybe finish this one deal.
So motion for a 90-day extension, moved by Bancroft, seconded by
I'll second.
Bessner.
Yep.
Can I get,
Roll call, please.
can I get clarity on that? So in 90 days, if they don't come back with an
It should be
agreement?
over in 90 days. So
Okay.
whatever we need to do, on the 91st day, Derek.
We don't have to come back and vote on this then?
I agree.
Okay.
Okay. You understand that, Derek? 90 days?
So again, sorry, Steve, just
Just
exactly,
clarification?
the only thing that's different is it's 90, not 30.
That's correct.
Okay.
Roll call, please, on that.
Calamaris,
Yes.
I don't care.
Payleitner,
Yes.
Bancroft,
Yes.
Lencioni,
Same.
Petrilla,
Yes.
Wirball,
Yes.
Bessner,
Yes.
Sokaitis.
Yes.
Okay. 90-day extension motion carries. Thank you very much. Next item is 4C. Russell will talk to us about the approval and to execute an acceptance resolution for roadway improvements for Anthem Heights subdivision.
Yes, this item is regarding acceptance of new streets in the Anthem Heights subdivision. It was last discussed by the committee in November. At that time, the committee recommended proceeding with acceptance of the street, but requested that the proposed warranty period for the street surface be increased from 5 years to 10 years. So we went back to the contractor with that request. They provided a warranty letter committing to a 10-year warranty. However, a full 10-year bond is not available currently. So they've submitted a 5-year bond, and after the end of that 5-year period, they're agreeing to extend the bond for an additional 5 years. Contractors provided information to substantiate that they have the ability to maintain a significant bond amount for ongoing projects. So we believe they are committed to upholding this. And we also have an analysis from their project engineer indicating that there's positive drainage throughout the subdivision to substantiate that the streets as they've been constructed are adequate from a drainage standpoint, if not meeting our exact standard for a cross slope. So staff's recommending proceeding with the acceptance as we think this is a fair agreement. We'll get the benefit of a much longer term warranty. We typically only get 1 year on a new street, and this will provide a 10-year full warranty based on the letter they've provided.
So just to recap, original warranty was 5. Now they have made it to 10 years, correct?
Correct.
Any questions? I know, Ron, this was something that you were
Yes,
concerned
thank
about
you.
before.
I
so I'll let
appreciate
you-
that. No, I appreciate us doing this. I think it's a good idea. I read somewhere that the bond amount was like $187,000. Would that cover the repairs, do you think?
Yes, so
I want to know where we came up with that number from.
yes, so we had a new engineer's estimate prepared for replacement of all of the street surface course within the subdivision. So that amount would cover that removal and replacement. And that would be updated after the 5-year period based on a new cost estimate.
And then also you had mentioned in here that before that 5-year term is up, we would actually do our due diligence and make sure there are no problems with that road, correct?
Yes, in particular, if we think there's going to be an issue securing an extension of the bond,
Right.
or if it appears that there's going to be a question of the amount of the bond, we would undertake that analysis.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I'll make a motion to
So moved by
approve it.
Ron Sokaitis to approve, seconded by
Second.
by Wirball. Can I please have a roll call on that?
Calamaris,
Yes.
Payleitner,
Yes.
Bancroft,
Yes.
Lencioni,
Petrilla?
Yes.
Wirball?
Yes.
Festner?
Yes.
Sulkaitis?
Yes.
That, motion carries. Next up, we have public comment. Anyone? Anyone? Okay. Any additional items from, staff, council, mayor? No? All right. With that, I'd like a motion and a second to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
By Lencioni, seconded by Wirball. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.